Hi everyone, I'm Shelly from There's No Place Like Home at redheadmom8.wordpress.com. A few weeks ago on my blog, I started a little 3-part series on relaxed homeschooling, and today I'm actually going to record the section for the 3rd part of my series because I didn't get to it when I actually posted the blog post a couple weeks ago. What I'm going to be talking to you about today are just some ways to implement relaxed homeschooling into your house. And while homeschooling is different in every house, and I say that to you all the time, with relaxed homeschooling, I've found that there are some principles that a lot of relaxed homeschoolers seem to have in common. And that's what I'm going to share with you today, just a few things that are going to help you maybe learn to just make things not as rigid and structured if you are doing it that way right now. And I just want you to remember that I actually have 7 things that I'm going to go over with you. And if they don't all fit what you envisioned for your homeschool, that's okay. Just pick out what would and would not work for you. Try it out. If it doesn't work, move on to something else. So it's not like these are the rules that you have to use in order to do relaxed homeschooling in your house. Because again, you know your kids better than anybody else. These are just some principles that a lot of us relaxed homeschoolers do have in common. So I'm going to start out with the first one. And the first one is to slow down with your planning. If you are a type A relaxed homeschool mom, like I am, planning is something that sometimes I really want to do it. And sometimes planning really can be fun. So yes, there have been times where I have actually sat down and spent several hours planning out an entire year, or sometimes even 2 years. And so from experience, I have found that that's not a good idea, especially if you plan on following it and not giving it any leeway at all. Because that's what I was doing at first. At first, I was looking at this schedule that I had set out for like the entire year. And if we wouldn't do something that I had planned for a certain day, it would really, really bother me. And I would do everything that I could to make sure that we jammed everything into that day as long as it was on the lesson plan, no matter what it took. And you don't want to do that in a relaxed homeschool, because if you find yourself focusing so much on these plans that you can't just take a breath and enjoy your children and let them enjoy what they're doing, that's not very relaxed, is it? So what I really suggest, and if you do like to plan like I do, what I've done is I've taken that long, well not long, but the 2-year long plan that I had written out, and I actually use that kind of as a reference now. I will only plan out 1 week at a time. And I actually do have a video on how I do my planning now. I use simple spiral notebooks to do this, nothing elaborate. And I will link that video in the description box below. But all I do now is I will take that, I will use it kind of as a guide, and I will take 1 week's worth of lessons and I will put them in my planner. I do not date the planner. I typically will write day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5. And for some reason, it makes it easier for me if I kind of have to push some of the plans aside for another day. For some reason, it's okay for me to change day 2 to day 3 rather than changing one date to another. I don't know, it's something with my personality. But so the point is that you really don't want to get so intent on doing everything on the specific day that you have it listed. So that's why I just say slow down with your planning. Just do like 1 week at a time, maybe 2 weeks at a time. And when you do that plan, if you do the plan, you don't even have to do a plan. But if you do that plan, just remember to keep it flexible. And also, again, don't plan too far out because it becomes too easy to expect too much. The second thing that I'm going to share with you today is to forget about teacher's manuals. And I know some people are probably like, oh, but I have learned this from experience too. Now, first of all, if you need the teacher's manuals, for example, like checking the answers in math, or if you have something harder that you need the answer key for, if it doesn't have a separate answer key, if it comes in the teacher's manual, okay, I totally understand doing that. But what I used to do, and what I know a lot of other people do, is I would buy the teacher's manuals, even for like phonics and like kindergarten math. And every single curriculum that I was using, I bought the teacher's manual for. And what all that did, it added stress to our homeschool rather than actually helping me at all, because I realized that most teachers manuals are written for either a classroom setting. Even if they're homeschool books, I have noticed that a lot of teachers manuals are written more for a classroom setting than an actual homeschool. Or some of them are written if you are a very school at home homeschooling family, then they might work for you. But what I found is that all they've really done for us is added so much busy work. So I really do urge you that if you do not need the teacher's manual for the answer key, I wouldn't even add that extra expense to your homeschool budget, because it is not worth it. The third thing is to keep your structured learning time to a minimum. So if you think about it, spending 4 to 6 hours of time each day teaching your children, that's not going to leave a lot of time for your children to learn things on their own. So you want to try to keep your structured learning time in shorter increments. And some ways that you can do this are through doing unit studies, which tend to be a little bit shorter than if you teach every single subject separately. Keeping your lessons, say maybe 10 to 20 minutes long. You don't want to draw them out really for really long lengths of time. I know that a lot of people will set, say, 45 minutes to an hour for science, and 45 minutes to an hour for social studies, and 45 minutes to an hour for math. But what I found is that, at least with my children, their attention span doesn't last that long. So I've got them for about the first 10 minutes. And after that, they're gone. They're totally gone. So I would much rather have my kids listen intently for 10 to 20 minutes of a lesson than to kind of drift off for that extra 30 minutes beyond that, because it's not doing anything anyway. And to be honest, I think that we really need to realize that our kids learn far more from their interest-led learning that they do on their own than they really do learn in our homeschool routine. And I know that that really, really can hurt the pride of us homeschool moms, because we spend so much time planning out what we're going to do with our kids, and we get so excited about the things that we're going to do. But that's the truth of it. Your kids are going to learn more from everyday life than they will learn from the lessons that you plan from them. Now, I'm not saying that they will not learn anything from those lesson plans, but I will say that life really does have much more to offer than any curriculum ever will. So really keep that in mind when you are planning out the times that you do your homeschool day. And I would even just say, when it comes to that, just go with the flow. Don't even plan like a certain time to do each thing. Just let it happen as it happens. Let it take as long as it takes. And that really helps with the relaxed feeling of your homeschool. It helps you to be able to just breathe a little bit deeper and not to constantly be looking at the clock. So another one that I'm going to talk about is number 4, say goodbye to your textbooks. And again, textbooks are something that really do work for some families. But if you are trying to relax your homeschool, textbooks often don't work for a lot of kids, and they add a lot of stress because they don't fit kids who are kinesthetic learners, kids who really need to do things that are hands-on, kids who have a hard time sitting still. They really don't do as well with textbooks. Or auditory learners, for example, they don't really do so well with textbooks. So another thing that I really need to add that textbooks do is, what they do is they break apart every single subject. Okay, so if you have all these subjects that you have to teach your kids, textbooks, you can have anywhere from like between 4 to 6, maybe even more textbooks each day, or workbooks that your kids have to do. So it's like, okay, we're going to pull out the writing textbook. Now we're going to pull out the reading curriculum. Now we're going to pull out the grammar one, and the math, and the science, and the social studies, and the health. And before you know it, 6 hours have gone by, and your kids are still sitting there doing work in these little textbooks. So what I'm going to say to you is to really try to combine your subjects as much as possible, because life is not broken into subjects. We don't go around saying, well, I just figured out, how much money I spent in, yesterday at the bank, and now I just balance my checkbook so I can check off math for today. And you don't go outside and talk to your neighbor about her trip to, say, Jamaica, and then come in and say, oh, well, I learned about Jamaican culture, I'm going to check off social studies. Or, you don't go out and do gardening with your kids and then say, well, I just planted those sunflowers and I explained to them, how long it's going to take for them to grow. So that was science. We don't do that. So you don't really need to do that in your homeschool either. Schools do it kind of because that's just the way they're set up, and the way that I guess they need to, because that's how they have everything organized. We have the freedom of not having to separate everything like that. And some other ways to learn, I said to combine everything. You can use that through unit studies. Living books are an awesome way to learn with your kids. Just reading aloud to them is it's so bonding, and you are covering so many subjects as you are reading these books to these kids. I'm reading the Red Pyramid with my kids right now. They're doing a unit study on ancient Egypt. So we're reading through the Red Pyramid with, it was by Rick Riordan. My cat is sitting here. Kaylin, can you come get the cat? So anyway, so we're reading through the Red Pyramid by Rick Riordan. And as I'm reading this, they're learning about ancient Egyptian mythology. They're learning about geography, because they're talking about different areas of Africa, and then they're talking about different areas of Europe. They're talking about different areas of the United States. And then on top of that, they're talking about different monuments that they have. It talks about the Washington Monument, and it talks about the Eiffel Tower, and it talks about the Rio Grande River, and so many areas that are being covered just by me sitting there reading through this book with my kids. So living books really, really, really are such a relaxed and gentle way to learn with your kids. So I highly recommend that. Another way, besides those that you can learn without textbooks, is life learning. As I was saying earlier, just let your kids do a lot of self-directed learning. Now, you might want to touch on the 3 R's with them, do some reading, writing, and arithmetic with them each day, and then, send them off. Provide stimulating things for them to do, whether it would be puzzles or arts and crafts around the house, or board games, or, put some things out in the backyard that they can play on, and just have them readily available for your kids. And if they don't use them, that's okay. It's just kind of there if they feel like they want to use it. But just let your kids explore the world on their own, and to see what they can discover, because that's how kids will find out what they're interested in, is if they're given the freedom to just go out and about and just learn about the world. And I feel like I'm repeating myself, but that's what it is. So anyway, number 5 is forget about school timelines. And I don't mean history timelines. I mean developmental timelines. The reason that schools have to have kids reading by a certain age, and doing this form of math at this age and that form of math at that age, and being able to do just different skills at different ages, is because, again, they have all the kids grouped together, and it's easier for them to be able to teach that group as a whole rather than as individuals. So when they move that class up, they want to be able to move that whole class up, which is why they need to have everybody learning things at certain times. But the reality is that most kids don't all learn on the same timelines. They learn in their own time. So as a homeschooler, you can really embrace that. And the fact is that if you find yourself really relying on what you think they should be doing at certain ages, that's not going to make for a relaxed homeschool. I know, because I still fall prey to this a lot, especially with math. I'll say to one of my kids, you're 10 years old, you should really be able to do this now. So I still do it. And you know what? It just adds stress, and it makes it harder for the kids to learn, because they start to get anxious. And I start to get anxious, and then I feel guilty about it afterwards. So do what you can to just completely forget about the developmental timelines that they tend to push on you, whether it's through schools or the doctor's office, or the books that you can buy at the bookstore that says what your 4th grader needs to know and everything like that. Do not worry about it. Homeschooling is about tailoring the curriculum and the education to fit your child. Your child does not have to fit the timeline, okay? You can make your child have their own timeline. So, number 6 is, this is another hard one for me at times, say yes more. Your kids are going to more readily learn if they are given the freedom to explore things. And this goes right along with self-directed learning. I think that a lot of us parents have an automatic no factor. And I know that at least it's true with me. A lot of times my kids will come up to me and ask me if they can do something, and without even thinking, I just automatically say, no, 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 you can't do that. And it's just questions like, no, you can't go outside because it's raining. No, you can't paint because you're going to get paint on your clothes. No, you can't get out the glitter. You're going to get it all over the floor. No, you can't go and bake a cake because you're going to get flour everywhere in the kitchen. I don't want to clean it up. So it's like we parents often find all these excuses about why our kids can't do things. But if you think about it, that's really holding back the opportunities that they're going to have to learn about things. So yes, your kids might get flour all over the floor if they're out baking in the kitchen or if they're making Play-Doh or whatever it is. But they are learning as they're doing this, and they're also learning important life skills as they're doing this. And this helps them to be able to find those things that they may one day want to pursue in real life. You know, if I would have constantly told my daughter, no, you can't bake, she would have never known how much she loves to bake. Like even for Christmas, she asked for baking utensils. She loves this. And if I would have constantly said no to her, she never would have known it because she couldn't have done it. You know, and if I would have told my 17-year-old son, no, you can't go to the creek every time you wanted to go, every time he wanted to go, he never would have known that he really, really, really is into wildlife photography. And he wouldn't have been as interested in all of these creatures that he finds if he was just reading them through a book. He came to know and love these animals by being around them as he's out and about. And that is going to cause a far greater interest than if he were just reading about it in a book from the library. So yes, sometimes saying yes is going to inconvenience us. And I'm not saying that you should never tell your kids no, because of course there are circumstances that call for you to say no. But what I am saying is before you give that automatic no, just think about it first. Think about your reasons for saying no, and think if it's really worth it, that maybe they could do it. So try to say yes more. And the last one that I'm going to talk to you about is just be prepared to throw out your plans. Remember I talked about the plans? That was the first one that I talked about. You have to be prepared to throw them out in a relaxed homeschool, because as much as I said earlier, as much as we like to think that these little plans that we have are the things that are going to educate them the most, sometimes life throws things at us that interrupt us. You know, whether it's people or things from outside, or whether it's just that you feel and your kids feel like you really need a break for the day, and you really, you need a movie day or you need a park day. Embrace those times, because there is truly learning in everything that happens. And oftentimes life's little interruptions are going to give us so many object lessons that we're not going to get if we just rigidly stick to a schedule just so that we can say, okay, we got this done, I checked it off. So those are the tips that I have on how to relax your homeschool. If you have any other suggestions for people who are looking to relax their homeschool and aren't really sure what they need to do it, I would love if you would leave a comment. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I would love if you would do that. And I hope you have a great day.